Guys, you're welcome back to my channel today. Thank you so much for stopping by. In this video I'll be teaching you guys how to cut and sew a double keyhole bustier blouse. Please pardon my pattern paper. This is what I could get for this tutorial, so just ignore it. Thank you. So I'll start with the front pattern and I'll start by taking my point. The first point I'll take is the distance from my shoulder to my bust, which is 10 inches. The next point is the distance from my shoulder to my chest line, which is 8 inches. The next point is the distance from my shoulder to my under bust point, which is 13 inches. The next point is the distance from my shoulder to my waist point, my waistline in front, which is 16 inches. And the next point is the length of this blouse, which is 21 inches, but I'm going to mark 20 inches and I'll leave the 1 inch on the base. After doing that, I'm going to take my shoulder measurement on the shoulder line. Half of my shoulder measurement is 8 inches. I marked a point there. On my chest line, I will also take 8 inches, which is half of my round armhole measurement. So I'm going to connect the point from the shoulder to meet the point on my chest line into a straight line. After doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to take 1 inch for my shoulder slope. So on the armhole line, I'm going to go down by 1 inch and I'm going to curve into my neckline area like this. The next thing I'll do is to take half of my bust span measurement, which is my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2. It's 4 inches. I'm going to take the measurement on my UBL, on my waistline, and on the top length. And on my bust line, I'm going to go down by 1 inch. So I'll place my tape like this. I'll go down by 1 inch. After doing that, I'm going to connect all these dots into a straight line. So what I'm going to do now is to take my dart. So on the center front, which is the side facing me, I'm going to take half an inch on my UBL line, on my waistline, and on the top length. After doing that, I'll connect the dots into a straight line. And on my side front, which is the other side, I'm going to mark 1.5 inches on my UBL line, on my waistline, and on the top length line, and then I'll also connect into a straight line. So after doing that, the next thing I'll do is to use my ruler to slant from my UBL line to meet the 1 inch that I came down with like this. So this is not a straight line. Just look at what I am doing. Is a slanted line using my ruler. If you don't have a ruler, you can use your free hand, but make sure the line is not straight. I'll repeat the same thing for the center front area. Next thing I'll do is to measure the straight line that I have on the armhole area, and I'll divide it by 2. So I just marked the middle point. On that point where I indicated the middle point, I'll go in by half an inch, just like you see me doing. On my chest line, I'm going to place my bust circumference divided by 4, and I'll also indicate that with a point. So I'm going to use my ruler to connect from my shoulder line to meet the half an inch that I came in with, and to meet the bust measurements that I just placed on the armhole line. So if you don't understand, just look at what I am doing. After doing that, the next thing I'll do is to mark the width of my neckline. The width I'll be using for this neckline is 4 inches. So you can do 4 inches, you can do 4.5. It depends on how wide you want your neckline to be. So I just marked 4 inches. The next thing I'll do is to place my tape on my chest line, and I'll go in by either half an inch or 1 inch. So if you look at the thumbnail very well, you see that there is a space before the keyhole. I don't know how to explain, but I'll insert the picture here. So for me, I'll go inward like this by 1 inch, and I'll slant from that 1 inch to meet my shoulder line, to meet that line where I came in by 4 inches for my the wideness of my neckline. After doing that, the next thing I'll do is to draft out the keyhole neckline. So it depends on how wide you want the keyhole neckline to be. So for now, I want mine to be very slim, so I'm going to go in from this line by 1.5 inches, just like you see me doing, and I'm going to go ahead and extend my dart line to meet my chest line. After doing that, I'm going to tighten my over bust to avoid gaping. So on this side, I'm going to go out by half an inch, and on the side facing me, I'll also go out by half an inch, and then I'll use my ruler to connect from that point to meet my bust point like this. So the next thing I'll do is to shade my dart so that I will know this is where I'm supposed to cut whenever I'm cutting. And after doing that, I'm going to still mark the wideness that I want for my keyhole. Like I said before, I don't want it to be wide at all, so I'll go in by 1.5 inch. I think you should take your dart, tighten your underbust first before you take the wideness of your keyhole. So on this other side also, I'm going to mark 1 inch. I'll go out by 1 inch from the dart. Please note that I took the measurement after the dart. So I'm going to place my tape like this on my shoulder line, and then I'll come down by 2.5 inches like this. So this is how deep I want the keyhole neckline. I'm just going to insert a picture for you guys to know what I am doing. So I'm going to connect from my 1.5 inch to meet the 2.5 inch like this, and I also connect from that point to meet the 1 inch that I went out with on the chest line. So after doing that, I'm going to go ahead and replace this dart that I took on my chest. Now remember, we already have our bust circumference divided by 4 on my chest line. I'm just going to go ahead and replace this dart, okay, so that we don't run short of fabric, and then I'll go ahead and add another 2 inches for stitching allowance. And on my waistline, I'm going to take my waist circumference divided by 4. I'll replace this dart of 2 inches, and then I'll add another 2 inches for stitching allowance. After doing that, I'll go ahead and connect the points together. After doing that, the next thing I'll do is to take my side dart, and to do that you are going to be needing the distance from your shoulder to your waist measurements in front, and you'll be needing your distance from your shoulder measurements to your waist in back. So if you watched my basic bodies tutorial, you will see how I explained how to do that. So please note that from your shoulder to your waist in front is different from the distance from your shoulder to your waist on the back. So you are going to grab your tape and take that measurement. For me, the difference between my waist in front and my waist in back is 2 inches. So on my bust point, I went down by the 2 inches, and I'm going to connect like this to meet the bust point. So please take that measurement. I'm going to leave a picture or something for you guys to see how to take the measurement, and I'm going to shade off the dart. So we are done with the front pattern, so I'm going to go ahead and cut. So please pay close attention so that you know where to cut. So I'm done cutting, and these are all my patterns. So I'm going to close this side dart like this. I'll fold one of the darts and I'll use it to cover the other side, and then I'll use my tape to hold it down. After doing that, we are going to go ahead and start cutting the back pattern. So for the back pattern, I'll first of all take my zipper allowance of 1.5 inches and I'll roll into a straight line like this. After doing that, I'll start taking my point. So the first point I'll take is the distance from my shoulder to my bust, which is 10 inches, and the next point is the distance from my shoulder to my waist in back. Okay, my waist in back is 14 inches and my waist in front is 16 inches. That was why I said the distance from your waist in shoulder to your waist in front and your shoulder to your waist in back is not the same. So you can see that I'm marking 14 inches, not 16 inches, just like I did for the front. So this back pattern paper is going to be 2 inches shorter than my front pattern paper. I hope that you understand. So to mark the full length of the back, I'm going to add 5 inches to this 14 inches. So the full length of this back pattern paper is 19 inches because the front is 2 inches longer than the back because of the dart that we took on the side. On my shoulder line, I'll take half of my shoulder measurement, which is 8 inches. For my neck width, I'm going to take 3 inches, and for the depth, I'll take 1 inch, and then I'll connect using my ruler. To take my shoulder slope, on my shoulder line, I'm going to go down by 1 inch and then I'll slant into the neckline like this. And to get my chest line, I'll go up from my bust point by 2 inches. So whatever your bust point is, go up by 2 inches. That is how you get your chest line. I'm going to rule a straight line across. On my chest line, I'll take half of my armhole measurement, which is 8 inches. I'll indicate that with a point and I'll connect the point to meet the point on my shoulder line. The next thing I'll do is to mark the middle point of that line, and I'm going to indicate that with a dot. And on my chest line, I'm going to place my bust circumference divided by 4. I'll also indicate that with a point. I'll use my ruler to connect from that point to meet the point on the shoulder line. So I'll go ahead and take my dart. On my chest line, I'll take my bust band measurement divided by 2, which is my nipple to nipple measurement. I'll take the same measurement on my chest line, on my bust point, on my waistline, and on the length of this pattern paper, and I'm going to connect all these dots into a straight line. On my chest line, I'll come down by 1 inch. And on my waistline, which is where I'm going to take in my dart, I'm going to mark 0.75 inches on the left and I'll mark 0.75 inches on the right, and I'll connect from there to meet the 1 inch that I came down with from my chest line like this. And on the base of this pattern paper, I'm going to go up by 1.5 inches and I'll also connect from there to meet my waistline. I'll go ahead and start placing my measurements. So on my chest line, I already have my bust circumference divided by 4. I'm going to go ahead and add 2 inches for stitching allowance. On my waistline, I'll take my waist circumference divided by 4. I'll replace my dart and I'll also add 2 inches for stitching allowance. I'll also go ahead and place the same measurement that I have on my waistline on this pattern paper length. So if your top is going to be long, you have to place your hip measurement on the length of the pattern paper, but my top is very short. So to adjust my zipper allowance on the length of this pattern paper, remember I took 1.5 inches for my zipper allowance. I'm going to remove 1 inch. This is to avoid any form of bulginess on the zipper area. I'll slant from that point to my chest line just like this, and then I'll go ahead and cut. So guys, I'm done cutting and this is what I have. So I'm doing another type of back. I'm going to be adding loop to the back of this top, and what I'll do is to cut out this zipper allowance because I will not be needing it since I'll be adding a loop to this top. And what I'll do next is to go down from my chest line by 1 inch. I'll indicate that and I'll use my ruler to connect from that point to meet my armhole line. So I'm going to be inserting a picture up here for you guys to know the kind of neckline that I'll be doing for the back, but it's going to be a round neckline, and I'm going to cut out the yoke. So the point that I marked there is going to have a hook or button by the time I'm done sewing. So I'm going to go in by 4 inches because I want the back of this top to be very open. If you don't want yours to be open, you can just go in by 3 inches or 2.5 inches. So I'm going to connect from that part that is going to have a button to meet the 4 inches like this, and then I'll go ahead and cut. So just look at where I'm cutting so that you know where to cut. So for the loop, I'm still going to reduce the back so that the back can be a bit open. So I'm going to go in by 2 inches like this, and I'll slant from there to meet the base of this pattern paper. This is a V shape kind of loop, of which I'm going to trim out again. I'm doing this because I did a particular tutorial about this type of loop cutting. So yeah, I'm going to cut this out like this, and then I'm going to cut out my yoke also. So guys, after cutting out my loop, this is what I have. So go ahead and start sewing the front. So I went ahead to use my pattern paper to cut out my front. You can see that I added allowance all the way around, so don't forget to do that so you don't run short of fabric when you're sewing. So we'll start with my yoke. So I went ahead to use this satin to cut out my yoke, and I cut out 4 pieces for this yoke because I'll be using the same fabric as the lining. So I'm going to place them right sides facing each other. I'll pin down and then I'll go ahead and sew. So I'm going to sew the neckline, the armhole area, and the middle, and I'll leave the down part so that I can use it to turn it inside out. So these are my 2 front pieces. The center front is on fold, and I have 2 of the side front. I also went ahead to cut out lining for all. So what I'm going to do next is to cut out my pad, and I'm going to iron air stay to this fabric to strengthen it, and I'll iron everything in place. After doing that, this is what I have. I'll go ahead and sew it in place. In case you don't know how to do this, I have a very detailed tutorial on how to properly cut and sew your pad on your fabric, because I don't want this video to be too long. It's already longer, so I'll leave the link in the comment section. Go ahead and watch it in case you don't know how to pad your bustier. So what I'll do is to bring in my yoke, and I'll place it like this. Remember, we went in by 1 inch on the center front on our pattern paper, so I'll leave that 1 inch in the middle, and then I'll place my yoke like this. So just notch so that you know where to place your yoke. So I'm going to go ahead and pin my yoke like this, and I'll just run a straight stitch on it. So guys, I've gone ahead to stitch my yoke down, and I also created a channel because I want to add a boning to the center part. This is optional. After doing that, I'm going to shape my top. So I don't want it to be just straight. I want to add a little bit of curve to it. So I'm going to fold my top into 2 equal halves, and on my waistline I'm going to go up by 3 inches like this, and I'll mark the 3 inches. I'll slant that 3 inches to meet the center front like this, and I'll trim it out. So remember that your front and back bodice is supposed to be the same length at the end of the day. So if you are doing this for the front, make sure you trim the waist area of the back so that everything will match by the time you are sewing. I hope you understand. After doing that, I'll open it up, and this is the effect that I have. So what I'm going to do is to repeat the same thing for the lining piece for the front, and I'm going to place my lining piece on the main fabric like this. I'll go ahead and sew everything close. I'll sew the up, I'll sew the down, but I'll leave the sides. After doing that, I'll come back and show you guys the next step. So guys, I'm done sewing, and I've gone ahead to turn it inside out. So this is what I have on the inside, and this is what I have on the outside. So I'm going to bring in my back piece. So guys, I didn't sew my back piece in this tutorial because this video is already long. and I wanted to do it in a more detailed way so that you guys will understand. So I did it in another video. I'm going to leave the link in the comment section. It's very easy, very detailed, so please go ahead and watch it. It's a full tutorial and I'm sure that you guys will understand it. The link is in the comment section. So I'm going to place my front piece on the back like this. I'll sew my shoulders together and I'll use my allowance to sew the sides together. After sewing, I'll go ahead and add my desired sleeves, and you can decide not to even add any sleeves. Yeah, I hope this tutorial was helpful. Please don't forget to like this video, comment if you have any questions, subscribe if you are not a subscriber. I'll see you guys in the next one.